Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Prospect Podcast, another night edition. Obviously, summer hours have changed a little bit. Coach Schumann will be joining us. Maybe not. We'll see how his schedule works out. Either way, we have a fantastic guest today, Sam Lenson, kicking and punting specialist coach. The third of the game that's really not looked at in the limelight that it should be. That's for damn sure. Started LensonPuntingKicking.com back in 2021, I believe, Coach. I'll let him dive into that a little more. Mainly works out of the Northeast, up here by us. Does a great job with the athletes that he deals with, whether it be college placement or just working with them overall. Jack of all trades as well. Does kicking, punting, long snapping, returners, whatever that specialist category entails, Coach deals with it. So we're excited to talk to him. Coach, welcome, buddy. But thank you for taking the time.
Thanks, Coach. Yeah, I'm pumped up to be here. Really excited. And first of all, that is a heck of an intro. And that song that was played, that's awesome. I love it.
I don't want to hear that, because Coach Schumann, not only is he a coach and wears a million hats, but he's also an AI DJ. So that's 100% his creation based off of that. But we had to change the original because it was a little too fist pump Jersey Shore-ish, where we had to get that. It was too much for our normal 10 a.m. time slot, where we'd have people really getting after it that early, buddy. But listen, man, I appreciate you taking the time. Give us a little bit of your background, kind of how you got into it, where you're at now, and tell our viewers kind of like what made you.
Yeah, first of all, really appreciate you being here and obviously taking time, 8 p.m. on a Monday night. It's awesome to be here. So just diving all the way back to kind of my beginning, kind of start from ground zero, where, I was a 3-sport athlete in high school. But even going back from that, there's a competition called Punt, Pass, Kick. And it's a national competition where you punt, you kick, you throw a ball. I came in second in New England when I was 9 years old. I remember going out. The regional competition was at Gillette Stadium, where the Patriots played. And I was like, oh man, I was in the Ravens-Patriots game. We went out there at halftime. Like it was cool, man. That got jitters. And I realized that I'd love to be able to be on this field one day. And, I feel like football really played a huge role in my life with it. But diving back, I was a 3-sport athlete. Played Pop Warner. I was a backup quarterback. I was the kicker there. My first ever kicking lesson was actually with the one and only Doug Flutie, which was pretty cool to have that happen. So I actually played played soccer my freshman year of high school, and then really realized that, hey, I want to be able to kick. I want to be able to punt. I want to be able to go into the specialist side of football. So I played football, hockey, and baseball my sophomore, junior, senior year. I worked hard enough. I was lucky enough to get myself an opportunity, a scholarship opportunity to the University of Maine in Orono, Maine, where I played football there and pursued a degree of physical education in K through 12. My sophomore year, we were opening up against Boston College, and it was a week before the game. I was competing for the punt spot, the kickoff spot, and went out there for a kickoff that Thursday before the game. Game was on Saturday. Ended up tearing my quad in half on a kickoff as a kicker, your quad is essential to you being able to perform and doing everything. So the transfer portal at that time was not as crazy as it was or is currently right now. So I was out 10.5 months, and that really tested my mental toughness and my will and what I wanted to do to be able to help myself and do I want to play? Do I not want to play? And realize that my passion was really to help coach the guys around me to be the best they can be. So I did play in a couple games, and I did hold my junior and senior year. But one thing that I really took from that is I want to help my teammates be the best they could be on Saturdays. And that opened my eyes into coaching, where I graduated at the University of Maine. I got my master's, so I stayed another 2 years, got my master's in educational leadership. And while I was doing that, I took on the special teams quality control coach at the University of Maine. So that gave me an in-depth view of how to break down practices, create practice plans, work at that Division I college level. And that was an awesome opportunity. And I'm super thankful for that. And then when I left, it was March of 2020. COVID just happened. Like, it shut everything down. No graduation, no nothing. Moved back in with my parents, and I was forced with a decision. Like, do I go coach college football? Do I go pursue my degree in physical education? What do I do? And I really jumped at the first opportunity I had, which was go teach middle school PE in Southern Maine. So I did that. And then I was lucky enough to make a connection with the University of New England's head football coach, Mike Lichten, who gave me an opportunity to be the special teams assistant coach while also doing full-time teaching. I was teaching from 7 to 3, and then I was at the field from 4 to 10:30. And after a season of that, I was like, I can't do this. Like, I'm burnt out. I just can't do 2 full-time jobs at once. And I realized, at that time, I didn't care as much as for the L1 on kickoff or the right guard on punt. Like, I really wanted to focus on kickers, punters, snappers, and just be able to create a niche opportunity and be that coach that, I wish that I was able to get when I was in high school and middle school.
Right.
So I created Lenson Punting and Kicking in 2021. Started out with 0 athletes, built this thing where I train in Massachusetts, New Hampshire, and in Maine, and built it about where I have 50 kids from grade 5 to, all the way up to senior year in college, and just really work on the ground, boots on the ground, working with these guys on the mental game and the sports performance, and helping them realize that, hey, the game can be won or lost on that 1/3 of the game that you talked about earlier in the intro, that special teams right there. So that's a brief little, background into my history.
Yeah, no, it's awesome to look at it, right? Because not a lot of guys obviously go into that direction, right? When you're working with like this specialist field, whether it be kickers, punters, you said you held, right? Like, I held in college. It was one of the most. It's one of the. Nobody pays attention to it until shit goes wrong, right? And then it's like, oh, hell, right? Or it's kind of just one of those things. Like, nobody grows up and they're like, hey, like, I just want to be the holder. Like, it's not one of those things, but it's so pivotal to the game. And you know what I mean? Like, that guys need the work. And Coach Schumann and I, we talk about this all the time. Just you can throw a rock and hit trainers all over the place, right? They're all over YouTube. They're all over freaking Instagram, TikTok, right? Like, there's trainers for everything, right?
Right.
Talk about yourself and how you separate from some of those other guys, other than the fact that you do, right? Kicking, punting, like, you do it all, right? Like, what separates you from those guys?
Yeah, 100%. I think, first of all, like you said, the number one thing is you have to live it. If you're going to coach it, I have a firm belief in, like, obviously you can be able to pick up certain things and be around the game, but it helps when I, kicked in high school, I kicked in college. I've been around it. My boots on the ground for the last, 5 years running this thing. But the other thing is, I think that really helps me is my teaching background, where I'm a teacher. That's my full-time job. I love helping kids live happier and healthier lifestyles and creating positive relationships. And, if you go to a coach and expect a coach at the very beginning to change everything and to fix everything and it's going to look amazing, it's not going to work like that. it's a process that you have to trust from day one. And I think you have to establish a positive relationship with these guys. If you create that positive relationship and understand that, I'm there for you, you're there for me, like whatever I can do to help you get better. And if it's genuine and if it's real, like kids gravitate to that and they want that. They want to feel, that want right there. So I feel like that really separates me, where it's just like what you see is what you get. Like I'm going to kill it with positivity. I'm going to be super excited. And at the end of the day, like we're going to get better on the field.
Yeah, it's definitely huge because it's just a different generation. Like that's what they want. That's what they're looking for. They're looking for somebody that's fully invested in them, not just for how much, and especially for you, because you're not affiliated with a specific team per se, right? So like they're not looking at you as like, oh, he just cares if I make a field goal or if I'm kicking off and it's going through the end zone or any of those kind of things. Like it's about a personal relationship that you have with each of your players, which now allows you to kind of bounce around and do all of those things. You said you're working with a lot of ages and things like that, Coach. Like give us some of take us through. What do you see? What are you getting a lot of? Are you seeing more just kicking? Are you seeing more just punting? Like, what do you have a majority of? And what are some of the issues that those guys are really dealing with moving forward?
Yeah, great question. I see it all over the place. I think it's the more that you can offer for your team. Like it's being multiple. And I hear everybody playing, I'll bring you back just a little bit from my first ever college football meeting. We're in the meeting room. Coach Cosgrove, head football coach, just got inducted into the Ring of Honor at the University of Maine. Has everybody stand up, say name, where you're from, and what position you play. Everybody does this. And then one of the last guys to go is a sophomore linebacker that also says that he's the right guard on punt. Coach loses his mind. Because as you say, it's 1/3 of the game. And everyone says I'm a wide receiver, I'm a DB, but it's like, what can you add value? And I think that's super important. So I see more kids not specializing, especially up here in the Northeast, where like numbers are potentially limited. Like you're playing maybe defense, you're playing offense, but it's like, if you want to stay on that field, how can you add value for your team? So to answer your question, I see kids wanting to try it all. I'm doing this week the Maine Elite Clinic. This is the first year where they have over 200 guys that do wide receiver, DB, O-line. They're adding in special teams. So if you want to try it out, this is your opportunity to do that. And you can see if this is something that you can do. Again, I've worked with a bunch of middle school, a bunch of youth kids and laying the foundation. But I'd say 90%, 80% of my kids are high school based, that either maybe are playing currently or that just want to try it out, that play soccer and want to kick a football. Again, if you create a welcoming environment where, you take that stress off them for that immediate success and understanding that it's a process and you got to trust it, you got to have fun with it. And if you do that, good things happen.
Mm-hmm. Coach, Dave Schumann here. Good to meet you.
Hey, Coach. How are you?
Talk a little bit about when you think it's time for them as kickers or punters to start specializing and moving into a direction where they should focus on just that area more.
Yeah, well, I'm personally not a huge fan of specialization in general. Like I think kids should play multiple sports. I think you gain a lot from that. I also think you should play multiple positions. And I'm specifically talking in like the Massachusetts, New Hampshire, the Maine area where it's like some teams only have 30 to 50 kids on it. Like it's not massive. I don't know the numbers that you guys have down in Jersey, but like some kids have to play both ways with it. Now, look, I have a kid that I've been training. His name's Dima Petrov. He just got ranked the 2nd overall kicker in the class of 2028 through Chris Saylor. He's from Hanover, New Hampshire. He is a kicker, but he's also playing wide receiver and he's also playing linebacker or DB. I can't remember. But it's like the specialization, I don't know if it needs to take place right away. Again, I think it's the more you can offer for your team, because what I want to do too is like, if you're a wide receiver, let's start learning how to punt. Why would you not want to be on the field on 4th down when you could learn rugby punt and then maybe take that thing and go score instead of punting the ball, being able to read and react through it. So, I do, with that being said, Coach, though, like I have kids that just kick and I have kids that just punt, which is absolutely totally fine. And I see those kids mostly let's say, specializing through like that freshman, sophomore year when hey, I'm 4th or 5th on the depth chart as a wide receiver. I think my path to college potentially could be kicking. Let's dive into it. Let's go with that.
Yeah, what are they recruiting? So are they recruiting guys that are focused only in that direction? Or are they recruiting athletes, like your Pat McAfees, who are obviously an athlete that then focused on kicking and punting completely in college and, went to a whole different level? Or are they focusing on, or is just whoever the best guy is, which my guess is that's what it is with college, but I'm just curious from what you're seeing from your standpoint.
Yeah, no, I think you're right, Coach. Obviously, at the end of the day, like a college is making potentially a financial, or they're using a spot on a guy, right? So they want it to be the absolute best guy that they possibly could get. But I had a conversation with a coach in the NESCAC earlier, and he asked me, hey, what positions does this kid play? Like, it's not just kicking, it's not just punting. Like, let's show how versatile, how athletic he is, right? Oh, coach, he's an outside linebacker, and Andy plays kicker. Like, he has some awareness to him where he's an athlete. Because I feel like kickers get these stigmas where they're like the weird guys that are unathletic, that hang on the side. Like, majority of the guys that I train, I'd say 99% of them are not like that. Like, they play other positions, like they're cool dudes, like they're athletic, they work out, all of that good stuff. So, I think the eye test is real, where college coaches want to see these guys. These camps are huge for them, where it's like every college has a camp, whether it's a specialist camp or a skill position camp, where they want to get guys in person, see them, see what their build is, and see them kick. Like, you want to try your product out before that you invest in it. So, I would say a little bit of everything, but I think one thing that we really harp on with this training is like, A, your flexibility, B, you're getting in the weight room and getting stronger, and then C, obviously your kind of mental fortitude, where it's that cycle of the snap. How can we make trainings as realistic as possible? If you miss a kick in the first quarter, what's it going to be like in the third quarter when we need it? Or second quarter, miss a kick, game's on the line in the fourth quarter. How can we respond? Like, these are things that obviously coaches can't see right off the bat, but I think that's why game tape doesn't lie, and coaches use that as well.
Coach, when you're at these, and you said you're working with guys individually, are you going to camps as well, like these mega camps and stuff? And if so, when you get there and what you're doing, like, kind of, what do you have these guys do to put them through a workout in order for college coaches to kind of see what they need to see to help those guys along? What are you doing in that facet?
Yeah, that's good. I've actually never been to like a mega camp. Like, I've never ran or been a part of that. I've been a part of many college camps. Like, for example, at the end of this month, I'm running the University of New Hampshire's specialist camp, and
nice.
We're gonna do that. So, kind of the way that we're gonna do it is we're gonna be able to get them warmed up. We're gonna get them, like, I want to showcase multiple things, where maybe it's a competition at the beginning. Maybe it's a sudden change drill where it's like, hey, we're working on something else that we're going to immediately switch to kickoffs. And I want to see how they react on that. The biggest thing that I want to see, though, and this is something that was taught to me a long time ago, is I want to see a kid miss, because then I want to see what their response is. Like, does their head go down? Like, what happens? Does their head go down? Does their whole attitude change? How does their next setup look like? Like, does it totally change? Does it totally throw them off? Or are they able to just flush it, move on, and go to the next one? That would, if I'm a college coach and I'm going to a camp, I'm looking at what does their body language like? What does their mental makeup look like? Like, I know that I can get them right on the field with the fundamentals and the skills, but we got to make sure that mental makeup is there.
Yeah, I think that's obviously a big part of it is what they're. I mean, that's the key with kicking, is the mental makeup
it's crazy.
Right. Is maybe everything. Especially now, there's so many guys that can kick well.
Right.
That is the difference. Like, can they do it when the lights come on?
Yeah.
It's a huge deal. Everybody can do it at a pretty well at a camp, right? Or when they're in training. Especially since a lot of them obviously are getting specialized training, so you can get pretty good. And then it's, when the snap goes high, can you get the punt off? You make a decision when you're in in deep trouble, and what happens when the ball is snapped slightly inside or slightly outside, or if it's not placed perfectly. You know what I mean?
Right.
So
Yeah.
I think those things are huge things. Um, when you send your kids to some of these showcases like Sailor or Coles or any, do they like assess them from that standpoint? I was always curious about that. Are they assessing these outlier things that happen that really test the kickers' wherewithal? Because it's really interesting, because there's so, like, there's probably the position with the highest washout rate is kickers and punters at the college.
Oh yeah.
No
100%.
doubt.
Yeah.
Like, it's because, it's so hard to measure that when you're all of a sudden you're in a bigger stadium and there's more people cheering and yelling, versus the comforts of your hometown or something like that. So talk a little bit about that. I'm curious what you see, because that always fascinated me.
Yeah.
What are they doing to figure out this guy or that guy?
Yeah.
Or is it just that this guy's paid Sailor more than the other guy did? So
Right. Yeah. So I'll touch on that after. But I really appreciate what you say, because like that's something that I really take into my training super seriously. Like I just go on Twitter and Instagram and I see kids kicking off sticks, and it's great. Like you could hit a 50-yard field goal off sticks, but like, do you have a stick in a game? Like, is that game like whatsoever? And like, that's something I really try to put in my trainings, where it's like, if I'm snapping the ball to you with punt, like I'm going to give it to you on the ground. I'm going to give it to you high and left. And we need to be able to relate to that stuff, right? Because it's going to happen. We can't expect it to be perfect every time, because in the game, it's not going to be that way. A couple of new things that I've been trying to add into my sessions is, I have kids jog on from the sideline to go make a kick, where it's like I'm holding for them to make it game-like. The other thing is, like, I'll make them, and we're starting to understand this a little bit more, but like, I'll make them do push-ups on the sideline. I'll make them do jumping jacks on the sideline. I'm like, why am I doing this, guys? Why am I doing this? And like a lot of them are at the beginning, like, I don't know. It's like, well, dude, like we're training right now. We have a relationship. We're having fun, but your heart rate's at 70. Like, that's not what it's going to be like when the game and the lights are on. Like, you're going to be a little bit like your heart's going to be pumping. We're going to be going through it. Like, let's do push-ups. Let's do it like an exercise. And then we're going to go in and make a kick. Like, how can we be able to regulate ourselves and go do that? So that's something that I really add on to it. So to talk about what you're talking about, Coach Schumann, with the big camp. So I kind of relate to it. Like, you got the Coles, you got the Sailors, you got the Kicking Worlds, like all great companies that have a revenue and a stream that a lot of kids gravitate towards. You got kind of like one half of the kicking industry that have those big camps. Then you have the other half where it's like those private coaches that are working on kids. So like I absolutely a fan of Coles, absolutely a fan of Sailors. I don't want to send my kids there if they're going to be potentially middle or bottom of the pack, because they're going to get washed out. Like, they go out there and there's a ton of kids out there. And to be honest with you, Coach, you asked about the intricate details. I've never been to a ranking camp. I personally don't believe in ranking camps. The reason why, and I mean this with all due respect to the kicker that I had, but when I was my first year at the University of New England, I came in, I was pumped up. We had a 3-star kicker come in. We went 0 for 7 on field goals that year. Now, again, like, that could be a product of the kid, but if the ranking system only goes from 3 to 5, we're in a tougher spot, in my opinion. I'm of the coaching philosophy where I want kids to go to these colleges, get coaches being seen in person, and that's going to be the best avenue of recruiting. But again, the big companies are there. They are there. They cultivate a lot of competition between a lot of kids in the country, and that's a great thing to kind of see where you are. But again, I am on the other half of the kicking industry that, again, I've never been to a camp. I don't really know what they do there. I've had 2 guys that go there. They've spoke really highly about the Coles and the Sailor, which is awesome. My kind of philosophy with it is like, hey, you're going to train with me. we're going to work on all the little details. So therefore, when you go to those camps, you make a name for yourself. You go out there, and then they can recruit. They can put you on blast to the country.
Yep. Yeah. Whatever works, right, for your guys. So
Right.
that's always the key. It's amazing. It's a position where there's not that many spots,
Right.
but there's a lot of kids vying for those spots,
Yeah.
and a lot of kids training now. So it's fascinating to me how the whole kicking punting world is. I'm sorry, Derek. You were gonna ask.
No, it's a lot like, I mean, Dave, when we talk to college coaches all the time, right? And how do you recruit that, that guy that's just a quote football player, right? Like when the lights come on, he just excels, right? He's probably the best player on his team, but he doesn't stack up measurables, right? Or he doesn't have any scholarship offers, right? Like we ask coaches all the time, like, how do you find that guy, right? Like we know he's a good football player, or almost how do you justify getting that guy a scholarship? Because a lot of times those are the guys that are, your D3 players, or they don't get the scholarship and they're walking on, right? Kickers, like it's the same thing, right? Like when you turn the lights on, like a guy, he's got to be perfect every shot. And if he's not, then he's not good. And how many chances do you give them, right? Like these are all questions that as a college coach that's recruiting these guys, it's why most kickers, punters, like they're not on scholarship, like even at the highest of the high levels. Or like Coach Schumann said, like the turnover is so fast because there's a lot of shit on your shoulders, bro. Like, I mean, Dave and I have gone back and forth and we've talked about it. Like Coach played at UConn, right? Like, his kickers and specialists did things, right? Like I went to Sacred Heart and then Montclair State. Like our kickers and punters, like they all did different things too. Like they weren't exactly like they were part of the team, but they weren't really, you know what I mean? Like they were in their specialists are in their own world, right? Like they're like a bullpen catcher, right? For like baseball guys. Like they just kind of do their own thing, bro. They're in their own world. And like, look, when you drill that kick, you're the man and you're coming out with us. But when you don't, like, you better stay in your corner and go over there. So I think like Sam, your point about the mental side of it that really has to go into being a high level kicker or punter, right? Yeah. Especially in this world, like where transfer portal, NIL, just coaches could bring in a new guy like every season to go take your job. I mean, look, you specifically dealt with injury as you know what I mean? Like these are so many of the intangibles that go into it that it's just dynamic, and it's really interesting to talk and see what actually goes into that aspect. Because like you said, most of these guys, and look, I was fortunate enough to coach with Coach Schumann for years, right? Like we had a kicker, we had a punter, but a lot of times it was probably our best athlete that we were just going to put back there. And we were going to say, hey, bud, like we'll teach you a little bit of the quote unquote technique and whatever it is with kicking and punting, but for the most part, like just go out there, be athletic, and like get it down the field, right?
Just do your thing.
It's this, absolutely, Coach. How do you teach? Some with so many of the. I mean, we've seen a lot of like international guys coming in now with the Australian punting and all this kind of stuff. I mean, hell, when I was in school, like they still had the square toe shoe that they would kick off with. Like, I mean, it was a wild world. How do you deal with some of that, right? And especially you coming from the soccer world, right? Like, so talk about some of the actual technique that within kicking. You can go kicking or punting, either way you kind of want to go with it. Talk about some of the specific technique stuff that you're seeing and you're pushing on your guys to kind of help elevate their games.
Right. Yeah, and going back to a little bit about what you said too, and I really do want to hit your question because I think it's super important. But like, you talked about like, hey, when those lights come on, like what happens? And I think when we break down like specialist recruiting, like that is a marathon. It's not a sprint. Like, those top 1% guys will get offers in their sophomore, their junior year, but a lot of guys are not getting offers until the middle of their senior year or at the end of the season because coaches want to see what happens when the light goes on, right? Like you might do great at a college camp, but like what happens when there's a cold kick and it's Friday night and the lights are on? Like what happens? So like
when it's raining, You know what I mean?
Right.
Like it's raining.
Right.
You got a
happening, what's
6'4" dude coming off the edge. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? Like
Right.
there's a lot to it, man.
And
There's a
things
lot
I
to it.
can't super simulate in training. You know what I mean? Like I can run off the edge at them, but like someone, you know, it's like you said, 6'4", like running off the edge as hard as they can and you know, looking to block a kick, like how are they going to react when things like that happen? So you know, coaches wait a little bit with specialist recruiting. Again, I hammer to all my guys that it is a marathon. It is not a sprint. So like you gotta just, it's ebbs and flows with everything. You got to stay even keel and stay in the middle. So a little bit of that, and then just having that mental fortitude where it's that cycle of the snap. Like how can we forget about it, move on as soon as that play is over? So I really hammer that with the cycle of the snap, with all my guys in training. But especially when a kid comes to see me, it's like I never want to say, hey, this is what we're going to do. We're going to do this. We're going to do this. Yes, there are certain fundamentals and there are certain things that I want to do with this kid, but like I want them to be as athletic and naturally like fluid as they possibly could be. So if they are an unbelievable soccer player, where it's like they're a goalie and they take goal kicks, like how can we simulate that? What is that going to be like with our leg swing? A lot of the things that I'm adding in right now that I'm seeing a lot of, like you talked about the Australians and other punters doing, is like a lot of rugby kicks. And that's, I think, plays super well with high school football, especially when you don't have someone that can, let's say, is a true punter. You know, how can we get our best athlete back there, be able to roll to the side, read and react, and then hit a ball? I think it's pretty, you know, it's easier to teach them just the little fundamentals and techniques when it comes to that. But it is about being an athlete. And if you have green, tuck that thing and run. But I think it's about meeting the athlete of where they're at, taking their natural style of kicking and what they've already done in the past, and then lay the proper fundamentals and techniques with them. But I also think that, you know, Coach, we had a great conversation before we were on about like gaining the athlete's trust and building the relationship with them. And if you don't do that and you try to implement wholesale changes in a first or second training, they're going to lose it because they feel like they don't have any say in what's going on. You got to be able to meet them where they're at, build their confidence up, get them to trust you, and then make those little tweaks and changes so they're able to help, they're able to get better and improve.
There's no doubt. There's no doubt with that. In your personal opinion, what's harder to do, kick or punt?
Oh, that's hard, man. That's hard. I think it's hard, honestly. The reason why I think it's challenging, and I have a lot.
I mean, hell, you could break it down into kickoff and field goals if you wanted to. You know what I mean? Like, because in my world, it's different. They're all different. They're different.
Right. I think for kickers, a lot of kickers would say punting is harder just because you're back at 14 yards, you're by yourself, you go out there, you got probably 10 seconds where you're waiting for the ball, you got to catch the ball, like you got the eyes on you, you got all of that stuff. At least when you're taking a field goal, you got the holder back there, you're not necessarily by yourself. But if we're going straight on form and fundamentals, I think punting is way more drill work than kicking field goals is. I think field goals, obviously you have certain fundamentals and techniques with it. And you can, I'm a big fan of less movement, less room for error. But with punting, it is so much drill work that you have to do. And based on where the snap is, how you're going to adjust to it, I think punting would take the cake on what is harder to do consistently and have a repeatable action every time.
That's interesting. I guess the variable, the snap, and it's the different things they ask you to do make a difference there.
Right.
So
we can say the same thing with the hold, right? Like if the hold is slightly off, like for kicking, it is different.
Well, the kicker doesn't hold, right? So the punter has to get the ball.
Right.
But the punter has to be a better athlete. I mean, it's always best to be a good athlete, but a punter actually has to be at the higher levels, has to be a good athlete because he's got to be able to move.
100%.
So that's a big, and usually much bigger. Although a lot of the kickers are getting bigger too, because obviously they have shorter legs. And
they are.
Yeah. No, I think it's important too, right? Like I think when you talk about like a punter's body, right? They're like 6 foot to 6'3". They're kind of like more lanky. They are, probably strong, but like that's kind of what you want back there. And then, for example, I have a kid going to Bentley next year. I've trained him for the
Great
past
school.
4 years. He's 5'7". He's five, but he's consistent as anything. Talk about a repeatable swing every single time. And I had Division I coaches tell me that he wasn't big enough. He wasn't tall enough. They're not taking him because of that. And it's like, I get that for certain positions for sure, like an O lineman, a D lineman, a skilled position. If you want to be an X, but you're a 5'7", that might be a little tougher for you, right? But like for kicking, if you have the same repeatable action every single time and you're getting great results, I think leg strength can be pretty comparable between a 5'7" kid and a 6'3" athlete.
I think at the biggest level, it's survivability too.
Right.
That guy gets whacked.
In terms of what? Oh, you're talking like as a punter getting smashed out. You know what I mean in the return game.
Yep. Getting smashed, being a target.
Same with kicking though. Do you feel the same way with kickers?
I feel
like,
less. I feel less of it. I feel less of it in kicking.
Yeah.
Kicking is I feel like kicking is less of that because just the kickers are a little more protected.
100%.
You got some big boys in front of you.
Yeah.
Well, a little more protected too by the rules. So the punter.
100%. There's no doubt.
You're going to block a punt.
Buddy, we're coming.
Yeah,
like we'll take the first team down. Like we'll give up a first down too. Like if that guy, especially and Dave, like think about it. How many times in high school football, right, where that guy catches the snap and takes off and rolls, right, and all of a sudden like somebody just comes right off the edge and just drills him, right, and as he's going to kick it, like because they're like, wait, we thought he was running. Like that's high school football. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like at the higher levels, obviously NFL, right? Like we're not talking about that. Everybody is pretty much the same formation. Right. Those lower level college, like look, I had even in college, like I never had a kicker at Sacred Heart or Montclair that was over, 5'10". Right, like they were both kind of smaller dudes that could. Don't get me wrong, they could bang it, but they were smaller dudes. Our punter had transferred down, right? Like he was a higher level punter, came down, consistent as all hell, old school, just drop and boom. You know what I'm saying? Yep. But they were undersized, right? And that was kind of the reason that they were with us. But Dave, you're 100% correct, and especially with the ways that the rules are now, like kick off, like nobody's going after the kicker anymore, right? Like Pat McAfee flying down there doing his thing, like he's the ultimate, like he's a rarity. Like we never saw like, Adam Vinatieri out there, like trying to stick his nose into it. Right. Like some of those guys, it's just, this is what they are. It's the consistency for me, especially as a special teams coach. Like I just need you to hit. And I tell guys all the time, because we're not, obviously, like a high school coach is a different type of cat. If he's willing, like he's got to know who his guy is in order to attempt a field goal, because for them to just look, if we're on the 30, we're probably just going to go for it. Right. Like that's just who we are, what it is. That obviously could change with a really good kicker, but that consistency. So for me, as long as you're hitting every extra point, buddy, like we're good. Like that's all good for me. You know what I'm saying? Right. Like, and we do a lot of muddle huddle type stuff, and you know what I mean? Like we'll do all the dial it up. So even for our guy, like it needs to be an athletic dude, because he may catch a pitch or he may be in a pattern on an extra point. Right. And then, it's just, it's harder. It's like what you referenced though. Like I don't have a guy that's just a kicker. Like he's playing other positions and then he kicks. You know what I'm saying?
Like 90% of people in the country, like unless you're at, I think like Texas, I think Georgia, I think California, like those are those guys that like, year round they get to train. So like they maybe, for Coach Schuman's point, like when you specialize, like if I was in, Florida or, a warm weather area, like I'd specialize and I'd be kicking every day. Like that'd be awesome. Right. But like,
it's great that you bring that up too, Coach, because that led me into my next point. Being, Maine, New Hampshire, Massachusetts, right? Like there's a lot of snow. It's cold a lot of the time. Like football is truly a seasonal sport there. And obviously, like where we are in Jersey, like we deal with it too, right? Like this
Right.
isn't Florida where you can just go to any park and kick any day that
No
you
doubt.
want, right?
No doubt.
How do you work that? Obviously, does your training dip in the winter time, right? Do you have
Yeah.
indoor facilities that you can kind of get after and go? What
Yeah.
do you tell your guys to do during those cold? Like, how do you deal with the cold weather aspect for where you are in order to keep guys moving forward?
No doubt. Yeah, I think it's super important that we bring that up because it's real. Like we are at, I don't want to say a disadvantage because it's something that we choose to live in this area and like it's beautiful, like we enjoy it, but it is harder for everything, right? Like for especially football with training puts us maybe at a disadvantage to potentially some of those warmer states, but especially when the season. Let's talk about when the season ends, whether it's let's say December or late November for high school kids. I really want them to take 3 weeks off, especially, if they're playing another sport, great, go play that sport. But if you're kicking and you want to focus on kicking, like we're going to take that time off because we just beat our leg. Like we're going to wait, we're going to get better, like hit the weight room. We look at the off season, or at least I do, is like a little multiple components where it's like, after the season, we're hitting the weight room hard. We're going to focus on our flexibility, our pliability, our mobility, and we're going to gain some strength, doing some Olympic style lifts. That's something that we really harp on in the off season. And then for, Coach, you asked if my training dips down. Like I'm very thankful to have guys that want to train year round to get better at this. That doesn't take away that they play basketball or they play hockey. Like they give their time to that sport, but they find time to get better kicking because they love it. And I think it's the relationships that we build from that. So we are outside year round. This past year was every Wednesday. I did have a 2-hour dome session, and I'm very, very lucky to train at the New England Sports Hub. It's in Somersworth, New Hampshire. They actually put up uprights in there, which is awesome to have. And, I'll have about any given day. I mean, I could probably get 25 to 30 kids that would come drive an hour, 2 hours to get that work in. I think it's an awesome opportunity. I kind of think about it like a class where it's like I have Division I guys there, Division II guys there, 3 high school and middle school kids. We're all learning to get better, and it's cool seeing those high school kids and those college kids really gravitate to the younger kids to be able to help them be that role model and get better, in this process. So that's been awesome having that dome. So, obviously there are some times where, it's cold, it's snowy, but like a lot of kids, like I don't really cancel and the kids don't cancel as well. Like we get better and we train, and you never know what you're going to get on a random Friday night in November or October. What's it going to be like? We're in a wind, rain, anything. Like you got to play in it. So we're going to train in it.
Got it. It's awesome. That's really cool to hear because believe me, like the weather plays a role here. Like we run a 7-on-7 club. We hate doing tournaments inside. Not that we don't like to, or not that we wouldn't. It's just a different vibe to it, right? Like you always want to mimic as close to game-like situations, but it is true. Like we are at a disadvantage here in the Northeast when it comes to weather because they can go 7-on-7 year-round down there, or they can train year-round down there, down south, or out west. Like weather plays a huge role. It's also something we've talked about with the multi-sport athletes is because guys can't go outside and quote do football year-round. It's why they venture into other sports, right? It's why they wrestle, play basketball, right? Even in the spring, it's why we see guys doing a lot of other things because, just getting outside on a regular basis is difficult at sometimes. And that's kind of part of it too. I also think, like you said, like the numbers within the areas that you work with, right? Like, and this isn't a shot at your area by any means, but, when's the last time that, a high level player, right? Like on the a 5-star guy has come out of Maine or has come out of New Hampshire, right? Or any of those places. Like I feel like guys sometimes get lost in the sauce up there, right? Now, University of Maine has a great program, right? University of New Hampshire, and there's a lot of Division III caliber or level programs up there in the Northeast too. Like that's kind of what it flocks to. So I'm curious as your opinion as to how many guys that if they actually focused on kicking and punting could be higher level kickers and punters, but because they're normally just athletic and can play other positions, that's what they get recruited and go to college for. Is that something that you see happen a lot?
Yeah. Well, I think especially in the Northeast, we got to be gritty, not pretty, right? Like, we got to train in these opportunities where it's raining out because, we got to simulate what it's going to look like on game day. I think that's super, super important is training year round, with the weather and with the inclements that we have to deal with. But I 100% believe that if kids kind of dove into the specialists and the kicking and the punting, especially in the Northeast area, that they could go higher potentially than they would if they were a skill position player. Now, again, like I never want to tell a kid, like if a kid, I think everybody has their own path. Okay. And like going Division I right now has been probably the hardest it's ever been, in my opinion, with the transfer portal and everything that is going on. So I really push a lot of my kids to go Division III, NESCAC, Division II, get your film. If your goal is Division I, get your film at these lower level schools, get first team all conference, get second team all conference, and then go up and play. So, for example, I have a kid that I've trained for the past 4 years, Omar Booty. He played at Curry College. It's a small Division III school in Milton, I believe Milton, Massachusetts, or outside Boston. It's one of those two areas. But, a really good school. They had a great season this past year. He had an unbelievable season. 2 years in a row, he's been first team all conference there. This past off season, he became an All-American there. Hit the transfer portal, now is at the University of Maine. So he achieved his goal from Division III, now is going to Division I and going to play there. So it's like if kids really, really buy into the process of getting better, I do believe, going back to your original question, Coach, that if kids really trusted the process and wanted to specialize in it, they probably, especially if they don't have the physical attributes of playing Division I linebacker or Division I wide receiver, and they wanted to kick and had that interest, I think that this could be a hotbed for it. I really do. And that's what I'm trying to grow with these camps that I'm doing in Maine or in New Hampshire and Massachusetts, where, you're right. Like there are not a ton of higher level caliber kids. Like I told you about the kid out in Hanover, New Hampshire. He actually just picked up an offer from Iowa the other day, which was pretty cool. I can't tell you the last time that I've ever had a kid from New Hampshire, and I'm talking like middle of nowhere, New Hampshire, pick up an offer from Iowa, but or level Division I program. But like they're here, they just got to be found.
Yeah, it makes a ton of sense. Staying on the recruiting front, talk a little bit about the expectations that you have to manage there. So,
yes, that's a big one there.
Funny parents probably, if they're coming to you, are spending a lot more money than maybe the only other position I can think of is quarterback.
Right.
That's spending that amount of money, right? And probably much like quarterback, they have high expectations at the end of the road. So, what is managing that like, and talk about that, because I think that's something that's important to get out there.
I think it's huge, Coach. I think managing expectations is crazy because like everyone that I've trained, like everyone's, they come in, they're like, I want to play at Oregon, like I want to go play.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, man, like I'm sure you do. Like,
wait, it's awesome. The same up there. It's the same up there too, right? They all still want to go to Oregon too, dude. Like they all just want to wear Nike, and it's like everyone wants to go to the same places, brother. Right?
Dude, they're about to be 5,000, but it's like, that's great. Like, and I'm not here to rain on your fire. However, I'm going to be ultra realistic with any parent or a kid that asks me where they see themselves. The other thing with kind of my philosophy is a little different, right? Like I'm not training a kid for them to have that Division I mindset that they have to go there. Like at the end of the day, I want you to go to an academic institution that you're going to love and fall in love with. And football is a cherry on top with that. And I make that very, very clear to all the kids that I've trained and the parents that I've trained. Is like, I'm going to help you achieve your goals, but at the end of the day, we're going to be very realistic. Do you want to go to a Division I school and sit on the bench for 2 years, and then right before you get your opportunity, the transfer portal happens, and then you're going there, and you sit on the bench for another 2 years? Like, what do you want to do? Or do you want to go somewhere where you're wanted? We're not going to go jersey chasing, and you're going to go play. So I think that's something that we really have those conversations with, is like, going into your junior year, we're going to have a very honest conversation about like, where do you want to go? Like, what schools do you want to do? Well, let's do some reach schools. Let's do some schools in the middle. Let's do some other schools like that you think you could go to. But like 100% at the very beginning, it's, we're going to go somewhere where you're going to get a great education, and football is a cherry on top. Imagine, I bring out my situation, Coach, a lot, where I was at the University of Maine. I only went there at the very beginning because I was recruited there and got a scholarship there. I tore my quad in half. I was out 10 and a half months. When you're at a Division I level and you're in an injury, a long-term injury like that, I wasn't really part of the team during the season. I'm not going to team meals. I'm not going to practice it. Like, I'm going to rehab. That's it. Now, I really fell in love with the university that I was at. Like, I could have dropped down to a Division III school, but I loved the University of Maine. I loved the people that were there. I loved the academics that I was getting. And I would realize that, like, hey, if I went somewhere else, like, I wouldn't be even as happy even with football. And that's what I really try to bring my guys is, like, God forbid if something happened, and I know we got the transfer portal these days, but like, if God forbid if something happened at the school that you love, right? Like, are you going to be okay going there without football? And I think that's a really important thing that I talk to my parents about and kids.
No doubt. Really, it's interesting how the expectations are, and helping them to understand that the part of the process, which is, I mean, I'm always mind blown by it, just because I ran showcases for so many years, and like, thought at some point that I was doing something that was going to make a difference in that area.
Yeah.
But you're laughing, right?
It's just, I mean, because we all think the same. You know what I mean? Like, and at the end of the day, it just is what it is.
Yeah, and then as technology got better and better, and you got more information, you had Twitter, and you had, I thought that it would be more educated, but it actually, I don't know, it changed it. I don't know if it's worse or better, but it just, I feel like it just stays the same. So, but I think that's like, I'm looking at things through rose-colored glasses with your kids, and and a lot of people do, and because they know people that made it. That's really what it kind of comes down to. And it's funny because, like, in retrospect, I feel like, wow, the thing that I really got from all those showcases was I got to meet a lot of great kids. That was really what I got. Like, I mean, kids got recruited, all those kind of things, definitely. But what I got out of it was I got to meet a lot of great kids, know. So, and in some cases, some great families too. Right. But a lot of times some great kids. So that was not what I was actually bargaining for when I got it. I thought I was changing the world of recruiting, which you did in a certain aspect.
You changed the game. There's no doubt. You set a standard for what everybody else just kind of copy and pasted the model and kind of ran with it.
Good or bad, though, that's the thing.
100%. Yeah, absolutely. So, right. But I think, Dave, at the end of it, like, you know what I mean? Like, you've put a lot of people in or you've given more higher opportunities, or quote, better opportunities than if you had never done it. Right. You also created a foundation and a groundwork for what the entire showcase and recruiting world bases everything off of. Right. Mm-hmm. Like, how many times do we get on here, guys, like, oh, that's the OG of it. Right. Like, it is what it is.
Yeah. I thought recruiting would get better from it. And this is, I mean, we're going back a long time, but I thought it would get better from it, like more streamlined. And then I think what happened was recruiting became more chaotic, because when everyone realized, once everyone realized, hey, I can run a showcase, and I can run a showcase, and I can run a showcase, and I can run, and everybody could run a showcase, right? And you didn't have to do what I did, which was run them nationwide, where You could
Right.
run them in your backyard, and then if everybody runs one in their backyard, then you have a whole, which is what happens.
What's the
So
validity of this thing? Yeah.
yeah, so that's really what ends up happening. That was really, in I'm a capitalist, so like good for them. But it's as far as communication, the information based, and like setting expectations. I think all it did was in the long run, it raised expectations
hmm
instead of managed it. But and what I saw was, which I love, by the way, now numbers are important again as far as what you do. Like there's a lot of people that hate the numbers being important, but I didn't like the last 6 or 7 years where numbers were not part of the system as much because they just took older guys, and that was part of the
What do you mean by numbers, Dave?
like testing numbers, right?
Like
Because
40s, like 40s shuttles, like
yeah,
measurables, like not
true.
so much height and weight, but more so like actual like testing
measurables,
of
yeah. Measurables being a like, so that was obviously big when we were doing it, but what changed a lot is when it transitioned into automatic laser timing, which
Yeah.
for manual timing, when it transitioned to that at first, those systems were not really that, like, people didn't understand that you're going to run a little bit slower and all those kind of things. So there was a time when people just didn't want to test.
Right.
And so what happened was, to me,
Right.
at least from my perspective, you had like a 6 or 7 year window where it fostered in the thought process of, let me just get older guys. If people aren't going to test, I'm just going to get bigger, stronger guys, people that are older, proven. And so it played into more of the transfer portal deal, right? And NAL obviously made that even more important, right? So, but I think that being able to get numbers, I can now say, well, hey man, I'm as fast as this guy is, or faster than these guys.
Yeah.
Or as metrics become a bigger thing, like obviously kicking, it's a big deal, right?
Right.
Like if I'm 5'10" and I kick the ball and I'm able to show that I kicked the ball 10 yards farther than a guy they're recruiting, even if he is 6'3", that's something that's on their plate that they have to look at.
100%.
As biomechanics become more and more of a thing, and like what you talked about, the repeatability of a movement, and you're able to like say, hey, he kicks 10, I'm using an extreme example, but 10 yards farther, the mechanics as far as repeatability with his stroke is like an error percentage of XYZ.
Yeah.
And so now I can go and say, hey, this guy is comparable to the 6'5" Australian you brought in. Okay.
100%. Yeah.
So, and I think that's a good thing. So I always thought that metrics, I'm not talking about height and size. We all get it. Like the biggest guy, everybody understands that when that guy walks in the room. But what I always liked about speed and jumping ability or explosiveness or shuttle run time that was like an outlier, what I always liked about it is then I could go and say, hey, he might be 5'9", but he does these things better than this guy here.
Right.
So he's going to be able to. And when it was
where I had to try and make my money, Dave, right? Like I had to use that stuff. Like, hey, his 40 is this, but look at his shuttle here, and then spiral that into, all right, look at his game tape, right?
You
or
would
look
have
at
been
his
screwed
production.
in this. You would have been screwed in this little transfer portal era time period,
dude. They would have. I would have.
They would have just
look,
said,
not that
like,
hey, you're this guy. Thank you for what you did this season, but this guy's tracks better, or he's gonna. You know what I mean? Like we're moving to this, and now you're out. It didn't matter how much of a quote gamer I was. Didn't matter. I didn't measure up when it came to speed,
the
size.
So that's another good point, Derek. So the reason why I did it, one reason, like I was a track guy, right? And so the reason why I did it though was because now you could get numbers on people that weren't track guys, and you could like that was my whole thing. A thought process was it right? Because not everybody's going to run track. Not everybody's going to, But and down the line, I think what you will get too is like the biomechanical part of it, like how quick the ball's coming off their foot. So
I think it's already happening. Like,
yeah, it definitely is.
It's,
and just like like a slot, like someone like Derek. Although Derek ended up playing safety, but let's say he got recruited because he was shorter, right, and very quick, as a slot receiver. Well, I could go and let's say he really wanted to play slot receiver, but like everybody wants. And he was a really good safety, but like let's say everyone and they, now you could go and say, hey, listen, he's able to get off the line in this. He's able to you're able to measure like how quick he gets out of his break. Like if I could do that, then I could equate the person who's of a different size to someone, because otherwise
you can justify it.
They're always going to
sell it better.
Like I would always default to height.
Right.
Size, you know what I'm saying? Like I would always default to that as a coach because you're going to get fired.
Right.
So you're always going to default to that when you don't have numbers to say this guy actually is better. Not just film, but like because film is one thing. Like I can eyeball it and say, wow, this guy's really good. But if I can put numbers to it, now I can say this guy's really good. And you're not going to get fired because of this.
And you have equivocal data that backs it up, being like, I don't care that this guy is 5'11", he has this quick of a release compared to the 6'2" guy, and I'm better off with this guy. Like it is happening with kicking, like TrackMan data. I don't know if you guys ever watched like Sunday Night.
TrackMan, baseball. Yeah.
Right. So
it was used for baseball originally, right?
Baseball, tennis, golf, or not tennis, golf. But if you go on Sunday Night Football and you're watching a kick next time, like watch where it says like, 42-yard attempt, and then they kick it, and it says good from 57. Like that stuff is happening at camps across the country, right? Like all these big schools are getting TrackMan data, and then that's where it goes where that's the 5'7" kicker versus the 6'3" kicker, and like what's the height at line of scrimmage? Like what's the ball flight looking like? Like how many rotations are we talking? And you're like,
it's like in baseball when they're talking like how fast a home run gets out, exit velocity, right? Like now you can see. And Dave, and I'm not sure if the stuff that you're working with your speed doctor stuff can track that stuff within the kicking game itself, right? Like now it could be, hey, the velocity of the ball coming off the punter's foot. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Or hang time or any of these other things, like whatever little pieces of, because obviously, look, we're moving into, if not already there, into this analytics world of football becoming more like baseball, where, hey, this is what the numbers are. This is what I'm going to do. And obviously football is a little different in catching up to that, but we're getting to that point where high school football coaches are taking into account numbers and analytics and what they're looking at, right? It's why you've seen the trend of going for it on fourth down a lot more, kicking an onside kick a lot more. Like some of these things where that used to be automatics, or hey, like even for us, our philosophy, like we are going to be uber aggressive, way more so than we've ever done in the past, of going for two rather than just lining up and kicking an extra point. Just because the percentages are a certain way when we looked at the data of, look, we're getting all this out there, like we might as well go for two. Or, hey, it shows this on, fourth downs, like, well, what are we doing? Let's just line up and go for it rather than punt. So I hope it doesn't eliminate the specialist to that level. I mean, you can look at kickoff, but I mean, kickoff in the NFL a couple years ago, right?
When you watch the World Cup, right, it's so littered with analytics and like, I mean, obviously they use an AI and all these different things, but what I think is interesting is like when you watch like the teams that are playing against each other. Like last night I was watching Mexico was playing who they lose England. Yep. So England. The size of the two teams. Okay, England was much bigger, and they ultimately won. But you could see that the Mexican players, who were smaller, really quick, and were able, like they knew what style of game was going to play to their favor, right? Like you could watch the game, and it was two completely different styles. They were able to hang with it. You could argue that England was physically superior, right? And you could say, okay, well, Mexico had a lot more shorter, quicker guys, and maybe that's what the pool they're drawing from. Maybe they don't have as many taller, bigger guys,
right?
And they're able to play just about the same level with England, who has much bigger guys, right? You see Norway, who has a lot of gigantic guys, but maybe they're not as quick. But you're able to figure out how to play to your strengths, right? Yeah. And ultimately, to me, like the biggest issue that Mexico had nothing to do with any of their players other than their goalie, like lacking a 6'3" goalie that can jump, like almost everybody else has in the rest of the world. It's not that he wasn't a good goalie. It's just that when he goes and reaches, he's a foot shorter.
Yeah.
Right. So that ultimately that's the difference. But you could see like how that stuff is playing into the game. Like there's not one person that didn't watch the game that thought, shoot, if Mexico was able to have, and I'm sure the guy's a great athlete, which is why he's there.
Yeah.
But if they're able to have a guy like that was 6'3", then it would have. Then they could play with the quick, athletic guys they have at all the other positions and match up with So figuring those things out and where your strengths are and playing to your strengths, and they figured out throughout the course how to stay away from headers. And England, contrary to it, like kept bringing in the taller and taller guys because they weren't going to give up a header, right? And it was just back and forth of two teams that physically were so different from each other, right? And it was a battle. Like each team was working to play to their strengths, and figure out how to win the game. And you're watching this go on throughout the course of the game. And then Mexico originally was trying to, jump with England in the headers, which was a mistake. Then they started to try to time it, so the kick would come in, the guy would come in from an area. Right. And go ahead and time it up, right?
Right.
So it's just so interesting because those things, like in soccer, they're starting to pull out all these different metrics. Like so you could take a guy like Messi can make it in soccer, right?
Yeah.
Because otherwise, how would he if you used a lot of the things that we utilize in football, you know what I mean? Like there would be no place for a guy like Messi in American football. But then you have the outliers like Wes Welker. But those guys, the road they go through, which is what always strikes me so interesting. Like Argentina was able to pull, they saw he was great when he was a young kid.
Right.
Okay. And they said, hey, he had some sort of disease where he was smaller than everybody. He got like testosterone or whatever to get him to a measurable height. And everything like that. But what I thought was so interesting about it is like this guy was really good. And we need to figure out, can we get this guy to enough size that he could survive out there?
Right.
So he to utilize, the skills that he has, which are better than everybody else. Whereas in what we do in American football is like we completely default, to certain things.
I feel like it's all about like scheme. It's like, hey, this is the scheme we're running, and we're gonna plug and play the players. It's like, no, well, what athletes do we have on this team, and how can we create our scheme based around those guys? If we do that, then we're gonna be okay. And that's the same thing that you're talking about right there. Like it was Messi, and he shows up at a development camp, and he's 5'1", and everybody's 6 feet. All right. Hey, we're going with the 6 feet, guys. Like that's our scheme.
Right, he's going to the bottom of the list. No doubt.
And we missed out on a generational talent. So it's like the same thing that we do in American football. It's like, no, we're running this type of defense. We're running this type of offense. This is what we're going to do. And we're going to put our players in, and that's it. It's like, no, man, like you got to adjust your scheme based on the personnel.
Right.
And I think where you're at too, Coach, like, you know what I mean? Like that Northeast area where, like you said, the teams are smaller. Like those guys now, they have to work just that much harder to get on anybody's radar in general, let alone jump over the guys that are, you know what I mean? Like now, okay, hey, I got there. I already jumped through this many hoops. Now I got to go jump through this many more just to get even an opportunity to be there. Now I have to go and be perfect, right? Because if I miss one, that's what we expected. Okay, go to this pile, right? Go to that group. Like that's just kind of how it is.
Exact. Like
100%.
You need you in the long run, you need to be more exact on guy. Like if I'm not going to take this all-state player, 3-time all-state player because of his size or whatever, like I need to be, instead of saying like what we currently say, which is, oh, he doesn't have the right size. Like, oh, like he's a 3-time first team all-state player. Like there's something he does. So can we figure out how to measure? Can we measure that? Right. And so if we can measure that, then these guys don't, because the only thing they fear about is getting fired, right? And and because of the way the system is, that's basically what ends up happening. But like the better we get,
the time to develop is not there either, right?
And guys who can look at it too, like let's say Sam looks at it, like we gotta have to develop. All right, so we get the technology, whatever that technology does, eventually can do a whole lot. But you need the smart people like Sam, right, who could go and say, hey, listen, like this is worthwhile taking this guy.
Right.
Okay. And this, because he does have all these things, and this equals out to being better than taking some inconsistent guy that's a giant,
Right.
And listen, you get a guy that's a giant that has all these things, no doubt. That's the home run, right? That's the holy grail.
Correct.
Right.
Like,
and those holy grails happen.
You were right.
But it's hard to do that when there's a job on the line, and like the eye test is a real thing. Where it's like if a coach sees a player and they're like, "Dang, like he passes the test," but it's like I really like what you said, Coach Schumann, where it's like, God, if this kid's a 3-time all conference, but he's just a little smaller, like why is he not getting the offer? Like there's something to be said that happens in between the white lines on a Friday or Saturday. Like
it drives me nuts more in the quarterback space, right? When I watch,
I was just gonna make that comparison, Dave, right? Like what's a harder sell? What's a harder sell? Like a high level kicker or a high level quarterback, right? Like like, you know what I mean? Like in terms of recruiting that guy, like which one, right? Like how many times? Look, we see countless, first round draft picks that are quarterbacks that are complete busts, right? Where it just never works out.
Why aren't we measuring? Because I'm sure we can. It's just people aren't taking the time to do it. But like why are we measuring how quick the ball gets out of a guy's hand, right? Like just like you want to know how quick it comes off, from the time he gets the snap for a punter to the time it gets off his foot.
Yeah.
Why are they'll just say he's got a quick release? Have you measured the release? Have you measured the time? Have you measured the trajectory of the throw? Like, have you measured and do we know what a good trajectory is of the throw? Like, there's 15 different types of throws. Okay, have we measured out does he make each one of these throws in the way that you think he can? And it goes both ways, right? Sometimes on the high end, sometimes he get obsessed with the smaller guy, right? Too, and I'm like, well, how is he didn't you know that he wasn't going to be able with his throwing release? Like he wasn't going to get it over the line. Like you could tell that, right? He didn't have a way of throwing that got the ball over the line. Like he didn't throw in windows when he was young. So what makes you think he's going to throw in windows now?
Right. Or guys, Dave, that hey, this guy's never been under center, but you're going to take him in your system where everything is under center. And now you're going to reteach this. You're going to reteach this guy that, since he's been, 6 years old, has been taking shotgun snaps and out there firing around all over the place. And now you're going to ask him to, get under center and play fake and do all this other stuff. Or guys, we've seen a lot of these quarterbacks now that have been in passing systems for a while. And they just kind of they have this clock of we call it a 7-on-7 clock of hey, 4 count, ball's got to be gone.
Yeah.
But like
Yeah.
these guys are holding on to it longer because they're in systems. Like you're a product of your environment. And for especially in the specialist world, kicking, punting, like that environment is very rare and very hard to mimic, except on a Friday night. I mean, even for us in general, like we only averaged anywhere from 20 to 24 special team snaps in a game, right? Like that's not a lot of opportunity. Like, whereas if you're a quarterback, like you might be throwing that thing 40 to 50 times.
Accuracy of the punter, accuracy of the kicker, accuracy of the quarterback, right? Like you could take.
What if you're a high school kicker who's never had a legit long snapper?
How many kids are there that, like, I used to, my favorite thing in college was that, like, when I was at UConn was this, like, we used to, as a running backs group, we would go out and we would, the day before when you're going through walkthrough, we would all throw the ball as far as we could. like who could throw it the farthest, right? And I could tell you that there were guys that were running backs on our team. Like I could throw it really far. There was a guy who was a fullback who could fire it a mile. Like literally, I watched him throw it 61 yards the day before. Like, we're just out there, and but he's not a quarterback though, right? So it's like there are, maybe our quarterback could only throw it 55 yards, but he was more accurate when he threw the ball. So there's a lot more than to certain things, and to me those things can all be measured. A lot of them can be measured, and then you could go and say, hey, this guy has it, quote unquote, right. And then these are the things that he also has that we measured that go along with it. I'm not talking about just like sprinting him, but I just like I kicking and punting along with quarterback fascinates me from that standpoint, that we have more and more of it. Kicking and punting is getting more and more and more of it. But like in football, like we don't want to accelerate it. And then as football, like the football coaches, let's take high school out of it because there's haves and have-nots. So It's not always fair to high school coaches. But in college, like they pretty much at the highest level all have the opportunity, and yet they think they're doing something that's actually making their life repeatable, but yet they're not. Like you paid this quarterback $10 million. Right. Like Michigan paid this guy's an unbelievable athlete. Okay, they paid him $10 million to be the quarterback. Yeah, you're just finding out like there's certain things you don't know, like because he was that much better an athlete with a great arm than everybody else in high school. It happens, right? Like Victor Wembanyama walks in the door, you're going to put him on your team at 7'6". Right. The mistake San Antonio made is that they didn't teach him how to play down low at 7'6". Right. What? Like, huh? So they have the best player probably, really, and the guy who beat them is the 6'1" point guard. Yeah, probably Jalen Brunson just beat him. Yeah, it used to always drive me nuts at basketball, watching basketball. Like Jalen Brunson, 6'1", like the tailback looking point guard. I always think is so great, and they would always get hated on at the pro level because they weren't quite tall enough. But like the physicality of him at 205 pounds, he's still, he's moving through the lane, probably running he probably runs like a 4.5, like 205 pounds, all the body is in the middle, and you got like he's more physical. So it's just interesting that like we still are like not measuring those things, where I really do think like watching soccer World Cup, like I'm like, man, these guys that's where all the catapult stuff originally came from to America, came from soccer. Right. They had that stuff. Yep. Because catapult came to me in 2012 or 13 maybe, and I put it on some of the kids backs at our camps and stuff. They were testing it to develop a product for football and all stuff. They were doing it in Europe like for years.
Really?
Yes.
That's data right there too. Like that is important stuff.
Football's just using it now, beginning like they were using it in the 2000s. Like they came over, they're like, yeah, we've been doing this for years. I'm like, what? Really?
Never heard of it.
I never even heard of this. Like I was shocked. They're like, you think this will be valuable for football? I'm like, yeah. Good luck getting football coaches to learn how to use it, though. Right? That took a long time. That was the biggest part. Was the length of time to adopt these things that can help it. Now, in speed world, like we've had him on, Tony Holler, like he just decided he was gonna just stand on his pedestal and just yell from the rooftops what he believed.
Right.
And a lot of guys are now starting to adopt those things. But I can tell you, because I bring my kid to stuff, man, 9 out of 10 people, like, because we interview guys like you. You're an innovator. You know, like we're interviewing the guys that are interviews. 9 out of 10 are not doing any of these things.
Right.
And I'm so shocked by it all the time because you could go on the internet and find more, but they get stuck in like, I got to work harder. I got to spend more time doing this. Like I have so many conversations that I'll die long before I'll ever be able to spew out like the things that shock me. But I see it in pieces in college because you get paid. Like Auburn, you don't follow track, but Auburn hired the head coach left. They hired the guy who had brought 161 of the 165 champions that they had. That he literally coached himself. 161 of he was an assistant, and they hired him as the head coach, right? Because obviously he was doing something that was different,
right?
You know, and that was good. Like, and so a lot of the way the system works is those guys are getting brought to the forefront more and more, but football's been slower with it, right? These type of guys who know these things and getting them in a position to be able to have a power where they can actually have influence, right? If you don't have, you're not in a position of influence, you're not going to be able to, you could say all the things you want, right? You're not going to be able to execute on it. And so more and more, I think it's starting to happen, but I think it's so necessary because these tools are out there, and it'll only help football coaches be more successful. Not everybody's a genius like Nick Saban.
Right.
That's the thing. Nick Saban was not, forget X's and O's. Obviously, he was great there. He was a genius in understanding just naturally his intuition of what makes a good player, what makes a good team, players that fit into systems. This was just his raw skill set.
Right.
Like this was, he may have developed it over the years,
sure,
but like you when you listen to him talk, who he worked, who his father was, all these things like honed in him. But we shouldn't be relying on only finding Nick Saban's ability because that's hard to find.
Yeah.
How many are there?
Very rare.
So, not many.
Use the tools to get that. Use the tools to get that, because and then put the people around you, because Nick Saban, Kirby Smarts, these guys, like you're like, let's find the genius. Well, let's find the guy who understands how to get the ability to leverage the systems that can make him be a genius and his team be a genius. Because then all of a sudden, when the genius is behind the curve, which happens every 3 or 4 years, things turn over. And now they're like, oh, he was so great. Dabo Sweeney, he was so great 10 years ago because you relied on his genius at the time.
Right.
Instead of systems, that can put you into that place. Like, he wasn't brilliant at that time, but then the systems changed. What made you great changed, and what made a team great. That's what Nick Saban understood. That's why he got out.
Right.
He understood that more uniquely than anybody else because he is probably a genius. Anyway, I want to let you go.
There's no doubt about that.
My 10-minute rant. I want you to kind of finish I'll let Derek, unless you have anything.
No, Coach. I mean, listen, we appreciate you taking the time. We've taken up way too much, but give us some closing thoughts, or let us, and then let us know where guys can find you. Go ahead.
Oh, and leave us with something too. Leave us with.
Well, before I do that, let me ask you guys one thing. If you guys have a minute, I'm curious on this because I've gone through your YouTube, and you guys have met and interviewed a ton of coaches and just people in general, right? Like, what is one habit that you both think that has stuck out to you that has made other coaches successful? Like, is there a common denominator that you see that keeps popping up after 300 episodes? Like, what is it that these coaches are saying that it's consistent?
You want me to go, or you want to go?
Go ahead, Dave. Yeah, no, go ahead, Dave. Go.
I think there are a couple of main things. Number one, you have to be adaptable.
Yeah.
So you got to be able to adapt to everything that's happening in real time.
Yeah.
Number two, you have to be able to get people to do what you want them to do, and for them to believe in that part of you. Meaning, like, it's not just honesty's part of it. It's part of it, but you have to be able to get them to believe in what you want to happen.
Right.
That's a huge part of it, right? And then I think the third thing is systems, literally systems. Saban would call it the process, right? But to me, for Saban, it was the process. But it's process is part of the system. That's one very big piece of the system.
Right.
And the guys who are really good now know how, because you could see with the best NFL coaches, they have systems. And I'm not talking about offensive calling system. I'm not talking about any of that. I'm talking about systems about how they go about doing everything and how their people have to go about doing everything. And the process, trusting the process, as Nick said, is part of that. But it's systems. Like, that goes to the strength coach, to, in college recruiting, and they have systems in place, and they have the ability to measure those systems.
Right.
How they're succeeding or failing. And that's, those three kind of things are really, to me, what those guys are all doing well. And a lot of times people don't have all three, and usually they have two of them that makes them very successful. If they have all three, they're going to be like Nick Saban, But most of them that we've talked to have definitely one. Like, you get savants, you get like guys who are just savants. Like Tony Holler, to me, is like a savant in the speed world, and he probably has a version of all three, but he definitely has one thing really, really well. You know what I mean? Like, he understands the system that he has, and he understands it really, really well, and he measures it. So he's got that, right? Now he's probably built out of the other parts that he needs to have. And like everybody always says, oh, you got to be a people person. That's why I say, like, they have to be able to believe in what you're doing. Some people are people persons, people, whatever you call them, right? Some people are not. There are people that are really successful that we talk to that would rather not be talking at all. And so I think that's one of the mistakes that people make. Like, it's one of the things that people always mistakenly make in interviews, right? Like, this guy comes off great personality. That does not mean he could do the job that you need, right?
Absolutely. And
I think at football, ADs always want to hire the guy they like. They always do. Always do. And I think they have to dive deeper into certain things. You know what I mean? But they always want to hire the guy they like, because being an AD, part of being an AD is having that charismatic personality, because you're dealing with donors and you're dealing, so they think, oh, I want to hire a guy that's like me as a football, that's like that as a football coach. And that's not always the best person for it. So
Right.
But yeah, I mean that's what I've seen. Like I think that, but that is the one biggest mistake that people who hire make, is that they don't dig a level deeper beyond what they think is a personality interview and what this guy, how he communicates. I've seen guys come in with folders of information, like football coaches for interviews, and they were horrible football coaches. Like if I was an AD to interview some, I don't even want to see any of that. The first thing is I want to know what you believe, and I want to try to ask you questions to judge if what you're telling me is really true.
Yeah, back it up.
And then, okay.
Right. And that just doesn't, that's not just your resume either, right? Or what people have told me. Like, you got to show me, I got to kind of feel it, right? And a lot of our guests, I think that's kind of how they've got it. They've made it. They just have something, you know what I mean? Like, I can't tell you exactly what it is. I also think you need to know your audience. A lot of these guys know who they are, what they are, and they understand that it's not a dog and pony show. Like, here, this is what it is. It's got to be the right fit. And I think those are the ones that we've seen kind of trend upward, is they understand what they want, and they're willing to take risks in some areas, but not in another. They're not going to sell their soul, right? Like, they kind of know who they are as a person and what either drives them or where they want to go. And I think those are the ones that we've seen in any facet of whoever we're talking to, whether it be coaches, whether it be, strength and conditioning guys. And it's irregardless of sport, right? Or, whether they're in the mental health field or nutrition, or right. Like, these are people that just, they love what they do at the end of the day. Like you said, they're willing to adapt and change things with the times, but they're also never going to go back on who they genuinely are. And I think when that's overly communicated and they understand that and they have that self-awareness, that's where I think we've really seen kind of people at that top level. Like, and we, like I said, we've done a lot of these, whether it be, across different genres or whatever it is, whatever you want to put it in, whether it be coaches at the Division I level or an NAIA school or some of that, right? Like, they know who they are, what they are, where they want to be. And they're going to stick to kind of that general mold of like, this is it. And I'm not going to kind of go veer too far from where that is. So I think the self-awareness piece for me is what I would say is the people that we have that are the highest level and they're really good at what they do. And by all means, some people might look at them and say they're quirky or they're different,
Hurley's
right?
Like a good example of that, right?
No doubt.
You wouldn't. If Dan Hurley hadn't succeeded the way he has succeeded, you would not hire Dan Hurley to be your head basketball coach.
In today's day and age?
He's crazy. In today's world, he yells at everybody. Like, nobody, everybody
he's
wants
standoffish. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like, he's just, listen, and he's from Jersey.
That's why you have to ask more questions. You have to go beyond that, like, interview where you're assessing the personality. Like, he might come off almost as like Asperger-ish, you know what I mean? Like he's, and I think you have to know what you want in your program. You have to know what everyone's going to accept, and you have to know what your the value systems is, because these guys that come in, like, the one thing that is so true is that there is no one formula.
Nope. There's no cookie cutter setup to this. Like, right? Like, there's no one way to do it. Just like, but they have certain.
They have some of those. They have those things. That's why I say, like, systems and guys who understand systems. To me, it's all about, like, eliminating the error percentage for yourself as a coach. So if you build systems, you better eliminate the error percentage. If you don't build systems, okay, now that's what's crazy about everyone who just says the process now. Yeah, that was before there were other ways to build systems. So the process is a system. Okay, now the process is part of a system because you're going to have access to other things that make your system even better, your ecosystem better. And
absolutely,
Listen, money has to do with it. Like the more money you have, there are things that make it. But ultimately, good coaches, good leaders, good trainers, whether they're rich or they're poor, they're able to figure things out that get the best out of people, right? And you can see it at the youth level, and you can see it at the highest level.
Absolutely.
And it's also more than just like the players themselves, right? Like they can get assistant coaches to do certain things, or administrators to do certain things, or parents to, to believe in certain, you know what I mean? Like they just have that niche. And if they don't, they understand that that's somewhat of a weakness of theirs. And then they hire people to fill that void. Like that's another huge piece to it. Like I don't want, and naturally this talks, I saw Robert Saleh give a great interview, right? And by all means, Robert Saleh right now to everyone is a letdown. He's a disappointment, and he's not a very good head coach in the NFL based off of what happened other places. But here he is, he gets this, he has a new job, and he said, he was talking about how, like, if you're in an interview process, like, you're going to think that the best coach is a coach in the mold of who you are as a coach, right? But that's not what you want. You don't want 25 Robert Salehs on a staff. That's not a very good staff. You want guys that are going to fill what you know or have identified as your weakness to fill those voids. And that now there are no weaknesses, right? Because these guys aren't who you are. And that might be really hard for guys, because when you're in a position of leadership, like, you want people, yes, to like answer to you and be, quote, yes men. But that's not a really good cohesive unit. Just a bunch of people telling you what you want to hear, right? Like, how does that work out? Not really well.
Do you know what the Peter principle is? Do you know what the Peter principle is?
What is it?
The Peter principle?
Peer principle? No.
Peter principle.
Peter principle.
So basically, it is that everybody rises to the level of their incompetence, meaning they come to a point where they get this job that's above their skill set, okay, and then they go back down to whatever level they fall to, whatever level they're actually at, right? And so when people get to the spot when they rise to the level that's above them, it's important and head coach at the highest level, right, is that for a lot of people. It's important to have all these things in place, systems, and how you're going to go about it, and know how to, the right people, the pieces of the pie, and all those kind of things. But to know how to have those systems in place in order to be able to make that it is not on your level of incompetence when you get to a higher level, because people are, and the really good leaders do that. Nick Saban, for him, was the NFL. Okay.
Yep.
It wasn't a job, because head coach was his, but it was the level for him, right? Same thing for Lou Holtz. The level for Lou Holtz was the NFL. Without whether he could have did the job if he gave himself more time, probably could have, but at that time he wasn't ready for what it was. Okay. Lou Holtz, they knew that very quickly in that first year as a head coach of the Jets, and went 4-13 and went right back to college, right? So if you get to that spot, Urban Meyer is another most modern example, right? Urban Meyer,
Lane Kiffin,
because they believed in their ability. They were the answer, right? And so if you go somewhere, because at the level of their actual ability, right? Urban Meyer was a standout in college. At the level of his actual ability, he was the best. But when he went above his ability, he didn't put the things in place to give him a chance to be successful there. And that's probably the hardest thing for everyone, including myself. It's the hardest, because you're like, I can do it. Your mind goes to, I can do it, and you have to get. I use this podcast. I am terrible, absolutely terrible. I'm good on podcasts. I am terrible at getting guests. Horrible. Not because I don't know enough people. Like if I were to if Derek were to sit down and say to me, Dave, can you give me all the people that you know would be great guests? I could give him probably hundreds of people that I know really well that would be great guests in a podcast. Okay. I don't have that skill set to go and get them and to book them. I'm the worst with my doctor's appointment is at this time and I have to put it into my calendar. What I am good with is if you tell me what time to be there and I know what I'm going to do, I'm going to be great at it. So if I run camps, I know when I have to be there at a camp, I know what I'm going to do from that point forward. I know the systems I'm going to put in place. But if there's not a system for me in place and I have to kind of create the system and I haven't created the system, bad.
Well, that's why the podcast works, right? Like you created a system where maybe you don't have to reach out to the guests. You got Coach D over here that's doing it, and he has that system and has that kind of philosophy in place.
He built this. He's good at building that system for and maybe enjoys that more than I do, right? Like maybe better at it than I am. So those are, these are like microcosm things, but at the higher levels, this is exactly what falls apart when you see a group of guys not succeed anymore. This is exactly what, as my camera goes crazy, that's exactly what happens. These things fall apart, and once it falls apart, then you lose that other part, like we talked about, where guys are no longer believing in what you're doing. So that's what I'm saying. You're going to see in football, in the next 10 years, that's why there's so many things going on with the NCAA, a radical shift in what makes a successful head coach. Signetti would never have gotten to the level he have gotten to in the manner he did 15 years ago. You would have never seen anyone give a 52-year-old guy a head coaching job. Never. No. Everybody wants to hire a 40-year-old. They all want to hire the 40-year-old.
And everybody wants to go along with trends. And it's a lot of the social media aspect for all the positives that come along with it, right? The negatives too. Everybody just wants to constantly do what is out there or what is seen, right? And some of this, the stuff we see the most of is the smallest percentages, right? The guy that runs the 4.2, these are the just you know what I mean? Some of those are the smallest examples, but it gives people that one sliver of hope that, look, we just talked about holding on to it, that stuff, they will now, well, this person did it. It's that's the smallest percentage, right? Whereas what you said, Coach, where I'd rather you go to the D3 and play 4 years than go to the high level and play for 1 and maybe have that opportunity. You know what I mean? So I think it's a lot of that. But it really is. It's just a lot of guys. It's hard to go against what you're
everyone thinks Elon Musk is a genius. Elon Musk is a genius, but you know he's a genius at raising money and building systems.
Yep.
Yeah.
Does he have great ideas? He knows how to pitch people, but he's great at raising money. He knows how to convince people to give him money for his ideas, because there's a lot of people with ideas. There's probably 10,000 people with the same idea that he had. Okay.
Yep.
But he was able to convince people to give him money for that idea
to do it. Yeah. No.
And then he was able to build the system over and over again, gigantic companies, and build these systems that make these things happen. I couldn't do that, but he could do that, right? And so he knows how to put the system in place that gets all these things done. And maybe he has a guy that he just calls up, that's his guy, and that guy builds it. But whatever it is, he gets it done. You know what I mean? There's Warren Buffett, his right-hand man, Charlie Munger. Warren Buffett got the investors. Charlie Munger was the guy that figured out whether those investments were worthy or not. Right? One guy. He had built the system, but it was his best friend who actually built the system. He went and got the investors. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it's so I mean I think those things are really and when you nail it, you know it. When you're not nailing and it's going in the wrong direction, you're trying to figure that out, and usually it's gonna end in a negative manner.
Not negative, yeah.
Yeah, not negative meaning like hopefully not crazy negative, but like negative meaning you're gonna have to try and something else or do something slightly different. But anyway, we've held you too long. Final thoughts from your side, and then we'll let you go.
No, I just appreciate you guys. Like this has been really cool. It's been nice to be able to just have a conversation. And look, I got 2 pages of notes out of everything that we've talked about as well. So like it's reciprocated where I got better, and I really improved as well with this. So I really appreciate you guys having me on, and being able to have a holistic conversation on coaching and how you can help these kids be the best they possibly could be.
No doubt. Thanks so much, Sam. Have a great night, and we'll see you soon, man.
All right, David. Thank you, Derek. All right, guys. Take care.
Thanks, buddy.
All right.
All right. Take care.
See you guys.
All right, Derek. I hear a lot of yelling about the game, so I'm gonna sign off.
Smoked.
I want to watch the last few minutes for it. Yeah, I heard.
It's brutal. I'll see you in the morning.
I don't know how you're even watching and see it all, but you must have something there. But yeah, I'll see you in the morning.
All right, buddy.
I'll see you in the morning. Later.